Hi, this is Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder of Mighty Blaze, and you have to excuse me because I have a bit of laryngitis, but it doesn't mean that I'm still not going to blab incessantly because we have one of my favorite people here as a gift, Marcy Dermansky. And look at this cover. This cover is so gorgeous, but you know what? What's inside is even better. So a few housekeeping things first. If you look on the right, there's a chat section. And what I put in there is I've made it really easy for you to buy any and all of Marcy's books by putting in a link to bookshop.org, or you can just go to your favorite indie or whatever you want to do. It's just like a really good idea to do. So let me tell you a little bit of Marcy, and then we will talk. All right, let me just pull this up. Okay, I don't remember when I first met Marcy, but it was one of those things where as soon as I met her, I liked her. And to show you how much I like her, I just pulled this off my bulletin board. I was having a really bad day a few years ago, and I don't remember what it was about, probably about my career or life in general. And Marcy sent me this amazing watercolor drawing, which I love so much, and I keep it posted up, and I look at it every day. So, Marcy Dermansky is the author of the critically acclaimed novels Hurricane Girl, Very Nice, The Red Car, Bad Marie, and Twins, and of course this fabulous new novel, Hot Air. Marcy's short fiction has been widely published and anthologized, appearing in McSweeney's, Guernica, the Indiana Review, Letty Letter, and elsewhere. Her essay, Maybe I Loved You, appeared in the best-selling anthology, Goodbye to All That, Writers on Loving and Leaving New York. And I was always pissed that I wasn't in that anthology. Marcy has received fellowships from McDowell, the Edward Albee Foundation. She's the winner of the Smallmouth Press, Andre Dubot Novella Award, and Story Magazine Carson McCullers Short Story Prize. So let's talk a second about the novel and some of the praise. In Hot Air, a single mother, would-be writer, and her daughter somehow spend a weekend with the super rich when a billionaire and his wife crash land their hot air balloon into a swimming pool. Fabulous, right? So here's praise.
Okay.
Roxane Gaze says, unapologetically and pleasurably absurd. This novel is a romp full of the witty, razor-sharp prose characteristic of all of Dermansky's books. Kirkus Reviews, I love this one. A new Dermansky novel is like a holiday declared out of the blue. So today should be Marcy Dermansky Day. And Library Journal says, a scorching satire of wicked, wacky relationships, iced with a juicy layer of saucy seduction. Dermansky distills a potent brew from the sad consequences of power disparities among people. Sounds familiar to our world right now, right? No arena of domestic human emotions is safe from her biting wit and analysis. Mother-daughter, employer-worker, husband-wife, rich-poor, all get their moment in the spotlight. It's laugh till you cry. And from Seattle Book Mama, I haven't had such a happy surprise in ages. That's just fabulous, Marcy. That's like, welcome and thank you so much for being here with this amazing book.
Great.
Okay, so I always hate the question that people always like to ask authors. Where do you get your ideas? So I'm not asking that. Instead, I'm asking you, what was sort of haunting you or obsessing you into writing Hot Air?
Okay, that's a great question, but it's still the same question, I think. But so that is actually, it's fine. As a writer, for me, the very hardest thing is coming up with an idea to start a novel. And I struggle. I sometimes waste tons of time in between books because I don't know. And I don't think I know what's haunting me or what I'm passionate about. I think I don't know that until I actually start writing. If I waited to know what was driving me, I don't think I would ever actually write. But so this novel started in the strangest way of all of my books, which was really from a writing prompt. Like a friend of mine has a newsletter, and somebody asked her a question saying they were stuck with their writing. And she basically sent a writing prompt to her newsletter. And I just saw it, and it literally was a hot air balloon falls into the backyard while the couple is having their first date. And I was like, well, why not? Why not? So I just wrote it, and I wrote a short story. So hot air used to be a short story, and it was called First Date. And I was done. And it was a great story. Like, that sounds so braggy. And I sent it to my agent, and he's like, I love this. And we sent it to the New Yorker, as you do. It got rejected. And he said, why don't you turn this into a novel? And I said, no, this was just a joke, and I'm going to work on something else. And I didn't touch it. And I think literally a year went by, and I still wasn't passionate about anything. And I got invited to a friend's house to write. And we were going to write first, and then we were going to have lunch. And that was so exciting to me. And so I got to her house, and I literally had nothing to write. And so I just opened the story, and I thought, okay, my agent liked this. I've been with my agent, Alex Glass, my whole career. And so I'm like, well, he's usually right. He's always right. So I'll just do this. And I gave myself like 3 months. I was like, I'll write a draft of this book in 3 months. And then when it turns out to be nothing, I'll have only wasted 3 months. And yeah.
That's incredible. So did you start out with character, or did you just start out with balloon falling in?
No, I only had written the first chapter. The first chapter was a short story. It had the balloon that fell into the swimming pool. So it started with Joni. And Joni, I mean, we'll just be honest, is a character who's not me, but she's the most similar to me because she's a single mother, as am I. And so, it's good. It's good to take material that you know about and work with it. And so when I decided to write chapter 2, the easiest thing for me whenever I don't know what I'm working on is to just switch points of view. It just moves the story and immediately propels it into the future. And so it was so easy to come up with who my points of view would be because she was having a date with Johnny. Boom, he's the next character. 2 people fell into the swimming pool, and their names were Julia and Jonathan, and they got to have their point of view. And suddenly I had 4 characters, and I had a narrative. And so it just really happened very easily.
That was actually my next question about critics love that you kept switching points of view. Yeah. And me too. I loved it. And I was going to ask you how difficult that was to manage, but it sounds like it wasn't. It sounds like it was fun.
It was fun. I mean, what I feel like, this is my third, I've written 6 novels. This is my 3rd novel with multiple points of view. And so it makes the writing that much simpler because every time you start with a new point of view, you don't start the moment after the next scene ends. You get to jump ahead, and it could be the next meal, it can be the next day, but it instantly gives you a fresh start and it moves you forward. And the only thing I did with this book, I just told you I had 4 main points of view, which is true. Right. But the good thing about writing your own novel is you get to break rules. So I have a rule when I write with multiple points of view. It's a definite rule. They follow an order, and I don't like to switch. So whatever that is, I don't even remember. And I keep to that order. But in this book, there were 2 characters that one time I started writing, I didn't know what to write, and I started working, and I was writing out of Joni's daughter's point of view. I don't know why I decided to do that. I just did, and there I was suddenly writing as an 8-year-old girl. It was really fun. And so her daughter Lucy, I think, only has 1 chapter. And yeah, and so that's breaking the rules of point of view. And there's also a point of view of Vivian, who's the billionaire's personal assistant. And she honestly didn't come until much later. I had a draft submitted. I turned in my book. It got sold. My editor loved it. But she's just like, Marcy, this is missing something. And as editors tend to do, she's like, this is missing something. But she didn't tell me what it was.
Oh, no.
I come up with it myself. And I knew, sometimes you don't want to do what's hard. Writers often don't want to do what's hard. And what's hard is what's necessary. And I kind of knew Vivian needed to start talking. And so the interesting thing to me is one of Vivian's chapters, I've been told by some people, is like their favorite of the whole book. And it just came so much later than everything else. And that was interesting. Yeah.
That's so great. So you've been called, and I consider this a huge compliment. Right. You've been called delightfully unhinged, which I think is
I think, not me.
I think that's the highest compliment in the world. So do you consider yourself that way? Have you always been that way? And why is that a great way to be? Because I think it is.
Well, here's the funny thing. I mean, all through my life, I've actually met people who kind of have like read I've met many people who've read my work and then met me and been like disappointed because I just sort of seem,
really?
I just sort of seem kind of normal. I don't dress crazy. I don't know. Like I think sometimes they wanted something else. So I think there's a difference though, and I love I love being delightfully unhinged. I think it is a compliment, but I don't think that in my own life, day to day, waking up, I don't think I, Marcy Dermansky, am delightfully unhinged. I think it's my work. I think those are two different things. And but I do know that like in college, my second writing teacher is a great novelist. She's really wonderful, named Elizabeth Benedict. And in my letter, I remember the letter she wrote to me. She called my characters, my female characters, unhinged. So this has been going on since I've been like 22, I guess. Yeah. But like I don't know what a delightfully unhinged person is, but to me somebody who's unhinged just doesn't like pay their bills on time. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm very very responsible.
That's so funny because I don't feel that at all. I feel like, as soon as I met you, I thought there's something unusual about this woman that I like. I just sort of sensed something, and I thought, this is great, because a lot of times you do meet people who are just normal, and you say, okay, but I sense like something was brewing under your surface, and I thought this is really good. This is really, really great.
Did I disappoint you? I might have just disappointed you, so I'm sorry.
So I want to talk about Joni.
Yeah.
Joni has trouble writing, and then she says she writes in one part in the book. She finally writes one sentence, and then another follows, and then it's like magic. And as soon as I read that, I thought, "Oh my God, she's a writer!" I wanted to know: is it that way for you? Do you ever get writer's block? And if you do, how do you escape?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get writer's block. I mean, I don't know. I think writers should say that. Well, no, I believe every writer who says what their process is their process. What I've just been discovering and more is that every writer does something differently, and what works for them won't work for you. And it's kind of annoying. And my process, I actually will say to myself, whatever this process is that I have, I'm never going to do it again. And
wow,
I really struggle. I think with the very first part of this conversation was where's your inspiration from books? I really struggle with writing new things. So starting a new book is really, really hard for me. And sometimes after I finish a book, I won't write for months. I won't write for years. Like the character of Joni, it's a lot more extreme than in my circumstances because Joni doesn't write for years and years and years. But it's just really hard for me to start. And so that I consider that writer's block. And it's just the same thing because I know as a person who writes that I'm always in a better mood after I've written. I'm always just happy. I'm always happy after I write. And I'm actually usually pretty happy while I'm writing. Like I really enjoy writing. I really it's so fun. And so the fact that I can go, it's so wonderful. And there's times when I don't write for a long period of time. And it's just not very smart because I know I'd be happier writing, but I don't think writers are always all that kind to themselves. Like I think I'm mean to myself. And so I think sometimes with my writer's block, which I have, I think it's just you get to a point of just like so much loathing and so much self-pity that you just break out of it. It's like enough. And I don't know when that starts. Like it starts for Joni in a way because I think her trying to get along with all of these rich people and to act like she's having fun and to be having fun, I think it's almost like a breaking point from her. I think something
Yeah. I love that. I always say that like starting to write a new book is like you're at the precipice of the ocean and you don't know what dangers are in the ocean yet. It could be box jellyfish, it could be sharks, but you sort of want to go in and yet you want to be safe and sure. But I absolutely agree. I'm much happier if I write. If I don't write, I'm cranky and miserable.
Exactly.
So I read an interview with you where you said that sometimes you believe there's a greater meaning to the work that you don't know at the time. As someone like me who finishes a novel thinking, oh my God, that's what I was really writing about. Yeah. This really interested me. So can you talk a little about that, please? Like how that comes out for you?
I mean, I don't really think I know what my books are about until they're published.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think somebody they have to be published, and somebody will read the book and they'll say it's about this. Like I'll listen to the Library Journal review about the dichotomies about class and this. And I'm like, oh yes, that is what I meant. Like I will always take credit for everything that's attributed to me. It's like I meant to do this, and this is not like a lot of other writers. Like I think if I had a real intention, this is why I don't think my process is for most people. I think if I really set out to try to write a book about I don't think I would do it. I think it might become didactic. I think I would get lost. I think I would stop. That's why I don't outline, by the way. If I know what's coming, I instantly don't want to do it. So I can't tell you what my work is about until after it's done. And
Yeah, well, because the big surprises come when you're in the zone,
yeah,
when
there's
you're
such
really
a, I
digging and
believe
writing,
that
and then it's,
zone.
oh, where did that come from?
Like I
Do
feel
you
like the characters are talking to you through your fingers, you know? So
do you ever disagree with what people say the book is about?
sometimes for sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but maybe that's the difference between a good review and a bad review. So I never agree with the bad reviews, right? Yes.
Okay. So I noticed that you love pools.
Yes.
There's a pool in Harkin Girl. There's
Yeah.
a pool here. So I wanted, and Joni gets an idea while she's in a pool swimming. Did pools always obsess you? What do they do for you? And is it the same thing if you go in the ocean, or does it have to be a swimming pool?
That's like swimming. I think swimming in general, like I think I come up a lot of, I think I definitely, well, that was so inarticulate. I think there's definitely something to being in a pool and swimming laps where you don't listen to music, you're not in conversation with anybody else. It's just kind of you in the water and you're moving your arms. And I think it's a really good place for me to come up with ideas, to have things occur to me. Sometimes if I am having a problem with the plot or I don't know what's going to happen next, I will definitely get that idea while I'm swimming. And I'm thinking about that now because this fall and this winter, I've kind of picking up a new way to go. I've been playing a lot of tennis for exercise, and it's just occurring to me like right now as we're talking. I don't ever get an idea when I'm playing tennis. When I'm playing tennis, I'm like, here comes the ball. I'll tell myself like, be relaxed, be easy, hit through the ball. All I'm thinking about is playing tennis, and I really enjoy it. But so swimming is different and preferable in that.
It's
And
meditative, don't you
it
think?
really actually is. And
Yeah.
tennis is not so. And I just determined that right now. So don't play tennis to get ideas for your fiction. But pools, I grew up with a swimming pool, like middle class family. We had an above ground pool in the backyard. But swimming has just always been like a happy place for me. I always just feel like if I'm having a bad day, writing is always going to work, or jumping in a pool is going to work. And I've never, since my childhood, I've never had my own swimming pool. And I think yeah. I mean, swimming, having your own pool for the most part, like I wouldn't say 100%, but I'd put in a really high percentage is for the wealthy. Like you have to have the chlorine, you have to have the maintenance, you have to have the land. It's just not for everybody. So, and by the way, I love a public swimming pool. I studied once in the South. I went to graduate school in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And it really opened to my eyes about how in these towns in Mississippi, they didn't have a single public pool. I couldn't even believe it. It was so upsetting. So pools,
It is a
they're so important. And I've also just been aware of a lot of times when you meet really, really rich people, as we sometimes do, they have pools and they don't even tend to notice them. They don't swim in them.
We have these people who bought the brownstone behind us, and we call them the richest because they're so fucking wealthy. They're so screwy wealthy. Excuse my language.
I can't imagine
And
a swimming
they
pool.
have a pool. They have a pool, an indoor pool on their
Wow.
third floor, which is one of those narrow pools where you just swim back and
Oh,
forth.
that pool, amazing.
And yeah, and a lap pool, but they never use it. They never use it. And I keep thinking, I would use that. I would love to have that. That
Well,
would be
see,
like
that's the
so
problem,
cool.
Carolyn, is that like if you were to make friends with those people, in your mind or in my mind, I'd be like, well, I hope I get to swim in their pool, and then I wouldn't want to meet them because I would know that they
Right. I
don't
don't
want
want to
to
meet
meet
them.
you.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
too
I don't want to meet them.
crazy.
I don't want to meet them.
Yeah,
But the idea of being in a pool is amazing.
yeah.
So I want to talk about interior monologues.
Okay.
Your books are so intimate because
Yeah.
we're in the heads of these people. They don't filter themselves. You
Yeah.
don't filter them. So, first of all, I wanted to know, do you feel like your characters are talking to you? Do you go into a zone? And second of all, do you yourself have interior monologues going on in your life?
Okay, sure. That's what I really like the most about writing, honestly, is the interior monologue. So I'm glad that you recognize that. That feels really good. But
Oh,
I
good.
once tried to turn one of my novels into a screenplay, and I absolutely couldn't do it because all there is in the
No.
screenplay is dialogue. And all I really want to do is I want to know what characters are thinking. Like I just love to do it so much, and it's so fun. And in general, what I think what people think for the most part are not things you would never want those thought bubbles in your head to be spoken out loud, or you would get into so much trouble. And I think maybe that goes into like when you talk to me about myself being delightfully unhinged, is that most of what I think I would never say. I'll be at a party, I'll just think so many things and I won't share it because I know that it might not be acceptable. But I mean, I do, like with my fiction, it's just one of my favorite things to do. And one thing I will notice is that a lot of times, even with this book, people will love my books, but they won't talk about my unlikable character.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that. There's no such, they're not unlikable. They're understandable and they're real and they're alive.
I love that. And that's the funny thing too, is that like for my novel, Very Nice, and for this book, everybody's unlikable. And what I feel like the reason why they might all be unlikable is because I'm giving their unfiltered thoughts. And their unfiltered thoughts are like not very nice. But they're,
So what? They're human. They're human.
I'm glad that you like my characters, or maybe you experienced that with your own.
Oh, I love them. Are you kidding? I wish I had been at that. I wish I had been at that whole milieu in Hot Air. Right. I would have had a blast. Yeah. Okay, so I always ask this question because I always consider characters real living human beings. Fast forward 10 years down the line. Where are the characters in Hot Air? How's Joni doing? How's Vivian doing? How's everybody?
They're all doing really well. Like, I've thought about them. Like Joni, that book that she is imagining her revenge book. This is actually, in my mind, this is a book that has the most wrapped up ending. I tend to leave open endings, but I feel like we should have no doubt, or I don't want any reader to have a doubt that Joni's going to publish this book and make a lot of money. That's fiction. You can do it. So that's what's going to happen to her. Julia's going to have a lot more cats. I think she's still going to be. I think she and Jonathan are going to be married. And I don't know, Johnny? They don't really interest me as much as Joni, by the way. Really coming down to it, I'm really only interested in Joni. That's my bias, and that's what's going to happen to her. It's only good things. Yeah. Okay,
so do you have any novels in a drawer?
Sure, I do. My saddest novel in the drawer was I think I blocked it so much that if it had a title, I don't remember it. But I called it my spaceship novel, and it came after Twins and before Bad Marie. And I wrote a book about a 13-year-old girl that gets abducted into space on a spaceship.
Oh,
it was, it was like a great first chapter. Like if you could like write a novel and have your first chapter be your whole book, it was so good. And then what happened is once I got her up into the spaceship, I had no idea what to do. I don't know how to write science fiction. It was bad, but it had possibility.
Well, that's good. I mean, possibility is fine. It's fine. I want to read you some of the comments you have. Let's see. Robin Stull says, sounds like tennis is a good mental break. Swimming is soothing and repetitive, which allows the mind to wander. Right. And then Renee said, yes, swimming is meditative.
That's funny. Yeah.
And then Robin said, unfiltered monologuing reminds me of a long ago Stephen King book where people started to have the ability to hear each other's thoughts. Yikes. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes those thoughts should be very, very private. I have another question for you, which is, actually I have a lot more. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is the quote that you said in an interview that I just loved. I also feel very much out of step with my peers, maybe for never having gotten a proper job or buying grown-up clothes. I feel like there's a different kind of oddness that is recognizable in other writers, but most of my writer friends live far away. I recently did become a homeowner, and I've started worrying about the price of gas and groceries and home repair, and that is definitely very growing up. Very age appropriate. I love having my own house. Okay, I absolutely love this, mostly because my husband and I just saw a documentary about Janice Ian and her career last night, and she talks sort of about the same thing, about what it is like to be an artist and to consider yourself sort of weird while, in her case, it was the record industry, was trying to package her. And you do have this wonderful, extraordinary oddness, which is the biggest compliment I can say. So I wanted to know that, are you drawn to other people who are odd? And I also wanted to talk about how you feel about owning a home, because I resisted owning any place to live in and being domestic for years and years and years until I had to. And then I found I loved it. So can you talk about both things?
I mean, I feel like we've been sort of talking about oddness and keeping
Right.
the whole conversation.
Talk about homeowning then. Talk about homeowning.
Well, so here's an interesting thing is that, like on a financial level, it just makes so much more sense. Like you can spend your whole adult life renting an apartment, and every time you pay your rent, the money just goes away. And now that I have a mortgage, every time I pay my mortgage, in a way, half of that money goes to taxes, but half of it goes to my home, which means I'm investing in myself. And so one thing I've just learned is that sometimes some people look into parents that will say, hey, you should buy a home. And some people don't. And when I sold Very Nice is the only book that I really kind of like made a little bit of money on. I had all this money, and it's like, well, what should we do with it? And so I got some help from my parents, because let's be real, in America, it's really impossible. And then you have this place that you get to love. And I mean, I'm kind of really embarrassed to be putting this out there. It's just like privilege in this. Like, I'm just really lucky. Like, I'm really lucky that I have this place. I live in a town like of Montclair, New Jersey, which is just basically like exploded. And I think I was able to get my little house right before it became impossible. And one of the first things I did was I pulled out all of the bushes in front of my house so that I would have space to grow flowers. And you kind of have to have your own space to be able to do that.
I know, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely amazing, wonderful. You got another question, actual question. Marcy, is there an author you'd like to meet, have a relaxed lunch chat? I guess this means living or dead, I guess. I would add that.
There's some writers that I've met that I would like to hang out with. Like, I would like to hang out with Kevin Wilson, who I know, but I've only met once in real life. I would love to have lunch with Ruthie Thorpe. I think she'd be really interesting. Like a lot of my contemporary writer friends in my mind, as opposed to in real life, live in different places. I don't think I mean, there's one scene in this book where Joni meets Vivian, had read her earlier book. I think a lot of times if you meet people who you really admire, there's a chance they could disappoint you. I'll just tell you like a real thing. I know a real writer in Montclair who Alice Elliott Dark lives in Montclair, and she's just like lovely. Do you know what I mean? Like one time I was in a cafe and I was working on something. I said, Alice, what do you think? And she looked over and she told me where to put a comma. It was just amazing. That's a real life friendship, like not an imaginary friendship, but that's a friendship too, in my mind, with a writer who I feel like has more experience than me, who teaches, who's really knowledgeable. And I really just feel like, see, this is the thing about me and talking, like this is now public. I feel lucky to have that friendship. And I doubt Alice is watching, but if she is, it's true. And so I can't think of a writer who I don't know that I would want to meet, though, because I think I would just be too scared.
Okay. So another question. Somebody asked me this question once, and I thought it was really weird. So of course I want to ask every other author I meet. What do you do? What do you do for fun?
Well, sure. Like I do play tennis
right now. And you swim.
Right? I swim. I pet my cats. It's really boring. Like these are the things I do for fun. I do read for fun. I really love to I'm watching The White Lotus, which I have a love-hate relationship with. I love watching TV. You know what I mean? So those are the things that I do for fun. That was actually not a difficult question.
Can you talk about the developmental editing work that you do? How does it satisfy you to do it? I always say that when you can figure out what's wrong with somebody else's work, it becomes easier to pinpoint what you should do in your own. And can you talk about what exactly you do when you do developmental editing for people?
Well, I mean, it's almost like if you throw a rock on a writer, they're a developmental editor. I mean, I'm an editor too. It's just
I
for
know.
somebody
We all do it. We all do
we
it.
all do it because it's like something you can do from home, and it's something we're really good at. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm really good at novels, like, and so I can read somebody else's novels. Like there have been occasions when I first started writing where I'd almost get so much excited about somebody's novel that I would sort of write with them, and later they'd get published, and I could read them and be like, oh yeah, I wrote that sentence. And I try not to do that too much, but I mean, it's just like I would literally just say it's a skill that I have, and I like to be able to share it. And I like that I can do it from home. I like to do it in my pajamas if I want to. I like to go to a cafe. I like that you get to sort of build your own hours, and it's I guess you could consider it sharing. Like it's something that I can offer to somebody else that's more valuable than my other skills. And
It's useful.
it's useful.
It's useful.
Sometimes it's not inexpensive, by the way, and sometimes people balk at that. It's like a real gamble to give money to another writer to say, can you guarantee if I can publish this? And
Nobody can do that. Nobody can do that.
I used to feel like a lot of guilt, but what I've kind of like how I've rationalized it in my mind, and I will always just tell anybody there's no guarantee, even if your book is wonderful, is I will say that you can almost say that working with me or any talented writer is like in a way you're paying for your own private graduate school.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so even if you work with a really great writer and you work about writing and you don't publish it, you've like learned a lot. And I feel like
you have.
And I hate when writers don't feel that they've written because they haven't gotten it published, because it's just not a fair playing field. I mean, in a way, like you and I both, it's just like, and I'm not over the fact that my books are published with Knopf, which is just very, it's not independent. It's a very established, you could even, it's not, I don't consider it corporate, but it is. They're trying to make a profit.
Of course.
And so that I can write what I want to write, and that I feel like I stand by 100%, and that my editors will be like, Marcy, is this okay with you? And have that work out in the world. It's just like amazing, and it's lucky. And I think it was Jonathan Evison, who's a writer that you know, a long time ago, he wrote a Facebook post, and he wrote kind of like the odds of being a professional writer.
Right.
You remember this post?
Yeah, Johnny's a friend of mine. I love him.
I thought we could tell him I've never lost this. He compared it to the odds of being a writer and getting published to being a professional baseball player. And he made it seem like our odds were worse, and we got paid a lot less. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you use who reads your work before you send it to your agent? Do you use anybody?
I have my friend Shelley. That's about it. Yeah. And not that many other people. It's like a risky process. I think some writers, you'll read their acknowledgments and they have like a large circle of people. And I'm just always really careful because I'm so sensitive. If somebody doesn't like something, it really hurts me too much. And I just am really protective. So.
Right. Yeah, it can. I once showed a book of mine to a person who told me every writer has a book that they need to burn, and I think this is yours. And I was devastated. Yeah, they did. But you know what? The book sold and it did really well. But it was still like a terrible thing to say.
I mean, that's a person it would be hard to trust a person like
no,
that.
I didn't trust her. I didn't trust her. So I never used her again.
Exactly.
But
you don't want to break somebody's heart. That's another thing. The last thing I say about editing is I will never tell somebody that their work is not publishable, because I literally feel like I read published books and think they're bad. So who am I to say? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I will never.
Yeah, everybody has different opinions, and there are so many fine books that don't get published, and so many books that really you wonder why they got published, but they got published and they did well. It's like it's a weird playing field.
So the person who said that to you, I just don't know how they felt comfortable doing.
Yeah. Okay, and I have one last question. Right. Do you have any idea like what you're going to be working on next, or is that feels like I bet you're going to say not yet?
I do know what I'm working on.
Yes, oh, you do? Oh, that's great. I'm
not going to talk about it. So.
Okay, great.
But I am working on something, and that's really thrilling to me, because a lot of times I have a book come out and I'm not working on anything, so I'm facing an abyss. And right now, when you have a book come out, I'm not really in a great place to sit down and write, but I know that like in a few weeks when I feel like I am, I know what file I'm going to open and get back to, and I feel really thrilled.
Right. Okay, so I just want to reiterate oh wait, somebody else has a new question.
Sure.
Great. Okay, here we go. Come on, show. Okay, Marcy, what type of books do you prefer to read? What are you currently reading? Do you read while you're writing? Can you read while you're writing?
I absolutely can read while I'm writing. Some writers can't. And I mean, I'm like typical in that I do love to, I love to read when I go to sleep. So I read every night. I mean, right now, I'll just tell like it's not a funny story. To me, it was a funny story. The day that my book came out, which wasn't that long ago, my daughter, who's 15, forgot that my book was coming out. And which is impossible. They're everywhere. They're all over our house. And she's like, Mom, I have to go to the bookstore because I need to buy a book right now. And I'm like, well, she doesn't want to buy my book. What is it? And it wasn't, I'll just admit I forgot the title. I think it's the Sunrise of the Reaping. I'm reading the new Hunger Games novel right now because Nina loves it.
It's supposed to be great.
Well, it's very, very, very sad. And so now that I'm reading it, I'm giving Nina chapter updates and I'm not reading it fast enough. But I'm reading that. And I will tell you something else. I'm reading some really great novels right now because on March 18th, which is when my book came out a week and a half ago, so many other novels came out on that day. Like Kristen Arnett has a new novel that I haven't read yet that I want to. I just read Amy Shern's novel, Animal Instinct, because it's very similar to mine and it's really great and funny and different. And I just read by Samir Panya, I read Our Beautiful Boys, which is just like a heartbreaking, really gripping novel about these three teenagers who get drunk after a football game and get into trouble. And it's a big, big book about like their families and their parents. And I love that. And pretty soon I have a novel by Kirsten Manger Anderson, who I went to Haverford College with. And she had a book come out that day. So I think it's going to take me a long time for me to read all the books that came out on my day. And I think I'm doing that in a weird way. I was so threatened by having so many books come out on my publication day that rather than be threatened by it, I know some of these writers and I got in touch with them and I was like, let's just trade books. And it just feels like it's a whole different, nicer thing.
Right. Well, okay, so thank you everybody for being here and for the questions and comments. Thank you so much. That always makes a big difference. And remember, at bookshop.org. If you don't know your favorite indie or you don't have one near you, just go to bookshop.org, type in Marcy's name, and you can, they'll find you a store and they can ship it right out to you. And it's a great thing to do because we want to support writers and we want to support bookstores, and we mostly want to support community, especially now. It's really, really important. So I will see all of you next time, and I want to thank Marcy. And Marcy, you're going to stay so I can thank you again properly when we're done. But everybody else, I'm going to say goodbye. So I will see all of you next time. Thank you so much. And Marcy, you hang on.
Okay.